Education, Tuesday, March 10th, 2009 at 6:30 p.m. Welcome. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand.
Well, we should, is my... I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members have a copy of the agenda in front of them. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Lynn, second by Barb. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of the February 10th, 2009 regular and closed session Board of Education meeting minutes.
Mr. President, I move approval of the minutes as presented.
We have a motion by Mark. Second by Brian. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. Next item is a student staff recognition. And Barb's going to lead us off with the first one.
I do. In fact, I have someone to introduce tonight. We have a very special arts winner from the state of Wisconsin, and his name is Andrew Brooks, and he's here with his family. So if Andrew would come forward with his family. And what I'll do while he introduces himself, that's good. Andrew is one of our special education students at Willow River Elementary, and I would ask Gail, maybe his mom, or Andrew, either one. Do you want to say a few words? Okay.
I once did Wisconsin.
Yes, you did.
Meow, meow.
I'm going to pass around the picture that Andrew submitted to be one of the winners in this state, so you can see. And Andrew, what did you win as a prize?
Oh, markers, art supplies.
And was it about $100 worth of art supplies?
Yes.
And what are you going to do with those?
Draw, work.
Very good. Did you get to go to Madison to get this award?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that you or your family need or want to say? Oh, do you want to tell us about your picture?
That is a picture
Of the parking garages. It's in New York City.
And
Up in number of 404 acres of
It's the street address. It's 544.
aha. Okay.
Andrew loves to draw. He would draw 24 hours a day if we would let him.
Huh.
Very good.
And nobody taught him how to draw. He learned this all on his own. So
It's wonderful. One of the judges at the contest said that certainly his artwork would be worthy of sale very soon, and so there was no question that this would be one of the winners. So we're very proud of Andrew. Thank you for coming.
Say, Andrew,
You're welcome.
can I give you a certificate of appreciation?
Do you remember his picture? Yeah. He did really good, didn't he? Yes. Oh, is that right?
Okay, thank you, Andrew. We'll move on to 5B, medical rescue. Mary?
And I would like to invite a very special staff member to come forward, Janelle McGee, if you'd come up to the front of the board. As she's coming up here, Janelle is a health assistant at the middle school, and she acted, just come on up in front. Thank you. She acted quickly and calmly in a medical emergency at the middle school. She applied her training and she directed other staff members. She used our AED, or automatic external defibrillator. You've seen these signs around. You have supported putting those in all of our buildings, and Jonelle did a great job using this and certainly taking decisive action before our emergency personnel could be on the scene and help out. So we really appreciate her as a model staff member representing other health assistants and showing how important they are for our schools to keep all of our students and staff safe. And so, Dan, you want to?
We have a certificate for Janelle, Certificate of Excellence in recognition of your leadership during a medical emergency.
I just want to add a few other things about the Heart-to-Heart program that is about having AEDs available throughout our community, as well as training people to use them. The Heart-to-Heart program is the name for Hudson Hospital and St. Croix EMS and Rescue, a program for community and public access of these defibrillators. And the goal of that program is to reduce the time of defibrillation and increase the chance of survival for anyone who would have a heart-related emergency. The phase 1 of the program was really a planned approach to increase and improve awareness and certainly access to these AEDs, and we installed those, as you know, in our buildings as well. And this is throughout our community. The second phase, and we are a partner in the second phase, is really to provide widespread training for students, whereby our students will be trained and they will train other students to use the defibrillators. And we have 52 high school juniors who will become trained as instructors, and then they will be sharing their training and their information with their peers. And so these AEDs are very, very important, and Janelle has demonstrated that training counts, and certainly we're very pleased to have her as one of our staff members.
Thank you, Mary. And then finally, we have a student recognition, National Merit Finalists, and Sandy.
Yes, I'd like to recognize this evening Zachary Blum. I'm hoping I'm saying this right. You want to come on up too? And Zachary is a finalist in the 2009 competition for National Merit Scholarships. In September, there were 16,000 semifinalists, and it has now been narrowed down. And it is a very rigorous competition, and it's based on high academic performance and promise in the future. And we're just very pleased to have you here tonight. And if you would like to, we'd sure love to hear about your plans for your future as far as college, and I'll let you talk.
Well, I'll tell you what I know, but I'm still pretty much in the air where I'm going next year. But I'm probably planning on studying chemical engineering and possibly at the University of Minnesota. So we'll see what happens, but thanks.
Okay, Zachary, if you want to wait just a second, we have a certificate of excellence in recognition of your achievement as a National Merit Finalist. And I'll also mention that Zach is a great soccer player, so. Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Mary?
Well, I'll start with our high school course registration. And we are very pleased to be able to bring you some progress, evidence of progress in relationship to raising high expectations for learning that we continue to talk about throughout the district. We are increasing rigor and increasing rigorous courses, preparing more students to take those high level of courses, and we have evidence of that, in the number of students at the high school have signed up now for advanced placement courses. And advanced placement courses prepare students to take a national exam, and if they score a 3, 4, or 5, they can actually receive college credit. And certainly that helps to lower some of the financial costs of going on to college and also preparing them for the rigor of a college curriculum. So when we look at our AP course registration and compare it to those students who were registered for fall courses this year, we had 411 students registered in AP courses, and as of registration for this fall 2009, we have 547 students registered. That's an increase over this last year of 33%. We certainly talked about the possibility of having a SMART goal that revolves around increasing the number of students in AP, but really what's happening is our system for learning is producing those kind of results without addressing it in the way of a goal. And we see evidence and progress of that throughout our system. We also had increased interest in AP American History, AP Government, AP Literature and Composition, AP Calculus, and AP German. We have some new courses this fall that also are rigorous or increased rigor. Certainly we have rigor in all of our courses, but we have a new course that is an introduction to engineering design called Project Lead the Way, and we had 59 students who were interested in that and registered, and I wondered, Zachary probably would have been interested had we had that earlier for him. We also, Mandarin Chinese, we had 98 students who registered for that. We're very pleased with our students challenging themselves. There was question whether students would be interested in Mandarin Chinese, and they certainly have proved that to be the case. We were looking forward to having at least one section of Mandarin Chinese, and we may have 3 sections of Mandarin Chinese instead. So very pleased with that progress and wanted to highlight that this evening. You want me to move on? Kindergarten registration, the board has these numbers in front of you. There is a new pink sheet hot off the press in front of your places. And you can see a change from the kindergarten registration numbers that we distributed to you last week. At our kindergarten registration, and thanks to our elementary principals for moving that up to February 24th, they had a week and a half to plan for that, but they did a great job, and our parents, thanks to them, came out and registered students across all of our elementary schools, and we had 374 kindergartners registered. Since that time, essentially 2 weeks, we have had additional students register. In fact, 10 new students registered. And so we are now up to 384. And if we would just compare that to our official count, kindergarten count, in September of this school year, we had 386. So 2 students less. It's been our experience that that number continues to go up before we actually start school if we would follow that same pattern. And since we're talking about Rivercrest this evening and EP Rock has 66 students registered. 2 weeks ago it was 65, and we have one more at 66. And Rivercrest at registration had 94 students, and as of this afternoon, they have 100 students in kindergarten registered. So what we don't have in this information is certainly we don't know how many students will actually leave the district and move out of the district, and then how many will move in, and what's that net gain to these numbers. But as of today, our numbers are 384 for total kindergarten registration for next year, and 100 at Rivercrest, 66 at EP Rock.
Okay, thanks, Mary, for that report. Next item on the agenda are the topics for action. And we're going to lead off with Rivercrest EP Rock boundary adjustment. Mary, are you going to say some opening words?
Early this school year, the administration identified that there was certainly enrollment growth beyond the projections that we had planned for Rivercrest, and we presented a preliminary proposal to the board in January. That proposal, we received feedback from parents, and as a result of feedback that in two different areas, particularly one of the areas was concern about the adjusted area that we were moving to EP Rock, that it was too large, and then the other was requests for about the impact impacting the least number of students. And so we responded to those two areas and came back to the board with a recommendation last month. The board asked for additional information, and we went over that. And so this evening, we will be providing information on the administration's recommendation and three other options that were requested by board members. Class size and the district's class size guidelines. Our guidelines are kindergarten 18 to 22 students and grades 3 through 5, 22 to 27 students. And I think I said kindergarten to second grade on that first one. Those guidelines are important to the decision making tonight in your consideration. So I've asked Sandy Kovach, our Director of Learning Services, and Peg Shoemaker, our Associate Director of Student Services, to talk about those guidelines and how they impact learning in our schools. Okay. So Sandy?
Thank you. We are all aware the Hudson School District has a tradition of being a quality school district. The Hudson School District has made a decision to raise that bar, and we're currently embarked on creating a system of high expectations, high support, and high accountability for student learning. With the recent approval of the strategic plan, HSD 2025, the school board has laid out bold goals that will require significant work to ensure that students achieve those higher expectations for learning. Two of the many expectations are that all students need to be prepared to earn a post-secondary credential or degree at a technical school, 2-year college, 4-year college, or university, and that all students need global connections and experiences. In order to assure that students achieve those higher expectations, we must ensure that staff have the support and resources necessary to carry out this future-focused plan. The district has also synergized our system through the use of setting yearly SMART goals. SMART goals are focused on student learning, and both principals and teachers are using student performance data to drive instructional and curricular improvement. There is also a new federal requirement, response to intervention, which is a very worthy initiative that is intended to prevent learning problems by optimizing instruction. Again, it is another initiative which emphasizes differentiated and intensified instruction by our teaching staff. All of these efforts, HSD 2025, our SMART goal initiatives, as well as RTI, really speak to the need to support to maintain our district elementary class size guidelines. We know that schools that set high expectations and provide the support necessary to achieve those expectations do have high rates of academic success.
For the past several years, elementary principals and teachers have embarked on a rigorous implementation design to improve reading and writing skills of all of our students. We know from research that there are practices that yield really high results and have huge benefits to our students. There's an old system of teaching reading and writing, and that old system is a whole group where the entire class is instructed at one time. The focus is on delivering the curriculum and teaching the materials, not on teaching the learners. Generally, the material is centered toward the middle. Unit tests are given at the end of the unit, and the testing data is generally not utilized for instruction. It's utilized to give a grade. Generally, this sort of reading and writing instruction is done in isolation. There isn't conversation and data discussed about the teaching practice. This system for teaching and learning and reading and writing benefited some of the students, primarily those students who were in the middle range. It did not meet the needs and does not meet the needs of our above grade level students or our below grade level struggling students. Truly, those students need a different delivery system. And the Hudson model for literacy delivery is one with very high expectations for our schools, for our teachers, for our principals, and for our students. High expectation, high performing districts expect that every child will grow at high levels. This is the essence of personalized approaches to teaching, reading, and writing. And this is the system that we've begun to build already. It looks really different than probably the traditional model in which you were taught as a student and I was taught. High-performing schools utilize an approach for reading and writing where student instruction is based on and structured for each student's learning level. This means that a teacher will instruct small groups of sometimes 1 up to 5 students with similar learning needs. This is a dynamic group, meaning that the groups change depending on the student's reading level. The methodology clearly requires lower class sizes to be able to individualize and personalize instruction. In addition, with this high expectation system, literacy strategies and best practices are regularly discussed with grade levels to brainstorm next steps with individual and groups of students. No longer is teaching in isolation. Grade levels are together talking about practices, talking about students, making the personalized approach work for our students. This system of personalized instruction utilizes ongoing daily assessment with periodic progress monitoring and formal assessment 3 times a year. In addition, data is collected and monitored on a regular basis. In order to deliver a systemic, comprehensive literacy system, we must remain committed to our small class sizes. It is these class sizes that will allow us to continue our work in delivering high-quality, personalized instruction with every student in every classroom, with every teacher in every school, every day. That is the work of a high-performing school district.
I have one more addition to class size, and thank you to Sandy and Peg for sharing your comments about where we're going and how that supports learning, student learning. In 2005, the district did a research-based survey of residents. And as you will remember, this was done by Decision Resources, conducted by Dr. Bill Morris. And there was a report to the community, and in that report, Dr. Morris said the district's class size goals are highly valued and are consistent with mainstream opinion throughout the district. In the survey, 76% of respondents support the district's class size goals and those are the ones we've talked about. So just a reminder that these have been valued for some time in the district, and as administrators, we would have evidence that that continues to be the case today. I know you're anxious to move on to the options, and I just have a couple comments before that. Wanted to make it really clear that the board has had this information prior to this time, and they've had time to review it, and also they've had time to ask the administration questions. So as we consider that, I'd like you to move forward and look at, turn your attention to option 1A, just Rivercrest boundaries, and Nancy's going to take us through that, and we have some handouts for those in the audience.
Okay. Option 1A is by means of review, because this is the recommendation that we made at the last meeting. And that recommendation would be to assign Carriage Lane, West Red Cedar Canyon, East Red Cedar Canyon, and the Lighthouse neighborhoods to ROC. And the components of that recommendation include that new students who enroll after tonight's meeting from the adjusted area would be assigned to ROC. Students from the adjusted area without preschool siblings may choose to attend either Rivercrest or Rock. Current Rivercrest students with preschool siblings would attend Rock starting at the beginning of the next school year, 2009-10. No future boundary exceptions will be granted to Rivercrest or Rock. Current Rivercrest boundary exceptions will expire at the end of 2008-09. That actually, the parents have already been informed of that since the last meeting. We would decline all non-resident open enrollment applications to Rivercrest or Rock with this particular option. And you will hear later tonight the agenda item on open enrollment, and it does not include approvals to Rivercrest or Rock. Tracy?
I'm going to quickly go through what the charts tell you, and the way this is set up, I can only do one school at a time. But first, big picture, as far as the charts, the options that you have in front of you, the option 1A utilizes the available space at both Rivercrest and EP Rock, and is within the building capacities and sections at both of these sites. Class sizes are kept within the guidelines except for, as you can see, that first grade class. Though if we look at 2% growth, everything I'm going to be putting up here tonight is 4% growth, and we kind of talked about that last time why we were using that. But if we were at 2% growth, that would fall within guidelines, that class that's currently over. I will show you also Rock with this option. EP Rock does have some flexibility to accommodate those 5-section kindergarten and second grade because they're intermediate level, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, they're only at 3 sections. So it does help to balance out enrollment between those 2 sites. Just as for Key, the blue areas are those classes that exceed guidelines, and then the gray are the ones where sections are below what that school would typically have. So 3 sections at EP Rock. As far as the calculations, the data that's in front of you does include the up-to-date enrollment numbers for kindergarten. And then basically what happens is you take that baseline data and then add or subtract the number of identified students in an area. So you'd subtract it from Rivercrest, add it to EP Rock, and then you add your 4% growth.
Okay. The primary advantages of this proposal include giving enrollment relief to Rivercrest and redistributing the enrollment in the available space at Rock. This particular recommendation impacts 45 current students and from 38 families. At Rivercrest, it does honor class size guidelines for the remaining 418 students. And after an initial transition period, neighborhoods would remain together at the same school. Primary disadvantages for your consideration: it does not grandfather all current students and their preschool siblings at Rivercrest. It would require up to 3 additional classroom teachers possible at Rock in 2009-10, and all the costs associated with opening these classrooms. That would certainly be dependent on the percentage of growth. The other disadvantage that we list here are that the current large Rivercrest kindergarten class continues as the largest class, exceeding class size guidelines until grade 3, and has potential to affect learning because it is beyond the class size guidelines.
I don't know if, Dan, if the board members want to ask questions now, or do you want us to continue on?
If it's okay with the board, I'd suggest we just go through all the different options.
Okay.
And come back.
All right, then moving on to 1B. This is a modification that was requested by board members in relationship to the administrative recommendation. And this is adjusting the Rivercrest boundaries with grandfathering. It's the same adjusted area. It moves new students that move into that area to Rock, And then the difference, the primary difference, is it grandfathers current Rivercrest students and, as of March 10th today, and their preschool siblings to Rivercrest. It allows exceeding those class size guidelines as necessary. There are no future boundary exceptions granted at Rivercrest, and the primary focus is Rivercrest with boundary exceptions in this modification. And current boundary exceptions, as with the preceding one, will expire this year, and no open enrollment applications will be approved. So Tracy?
Okay, big picture again with the charts. As you can see, Rivercrest is at the building's capacity by 2010, or right around about there, and exceeds class size guidelines in 2 classes in 09-10. And even if we look at 2% growth, those 2 classes would still be exceeding class size guidelines. And they continue to exceed guidelines in subsequent years, and also increase as far as the number of grade levels that are over guidelines. Again, looking at Rock, Rock is not utilizing 4 of its available classrooms with this option, and about 130 students, the building is about 130 students under its capacity.
Primary advantages include that it does grandfather all the current Rivercrest students and their siblings. It does not require additional classroom teachers next year. It does utilize space in both Rivercrest and Rock to balance the enrollment and the resources over time. However, the primary disadvantages would be that the primary grade levels exceed class size guidelines and have potential to affect learning for multiple years. Enrollment relief does not occur in the primary grade levels and extends further to grade 3 in 2011 and 12. The Rivercrest space continues to be overutilized, while Rock space is underutilized, and Rivercrest is at building capacity in 1 year and over capacity in just 2 years.
All right, moving on to option 2, the enrollment management plan. And this plan doesn't have an adjusted boundary area that moves from Rivercrest to Rock. Instead, as grade levels exceed the class size guidelines, they would be capped or closed to new students, and then those new students would be taken to Rock. And current Rivercrest students, certainly as of today, and their preschool siblings then would be grandfathered under this plan. The boundary exceptions would be, no future boundary exceptions would be granted to Rivercrest, and again, they expire, that's the same, and we would decline open enrollment as well. As new students come in and class sizes are capped at both Rock or Rivercrest, additional new students in those grade levels would be assigned to either schools, balancing the enrollment over time.
Okay, again, starting at Rivercrest, you can see that we would be capping kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. There's also that 1st grade class, which is 99, that's the current enrollment of that class, would be capped, and that does exceed class size guidelines. And Rivercrest is close to building capacity, and again, the 1 grade level exceeds capacity, or its guidelines for those 2 years. Rock continues to be underutilized, especially at the intermediary level. Sorry. And just as a note, you can see that in the yellow areas that are highlighted, that we've got like kindergarten at 92, which is 1 student above at each of those in each of those sections. And based on past practices for capping, that has been our practice, knowing that some kids will come in and go out. and just so that we maximize the number of students who would be remaining at Rivercrest in this option. Even if we brought the number of Rivercrest down, I'm going to skip that one. It does take multiple years to even out the enrollments between the two buildings. If we look at between Rock and Rivercrest, as you can see with Rock, again, those intermediary grades are well under. And one of the things that we, as we were looking at this, if we look at that kindergarten class for next year, something to consider that, or we'll have to consider as far as the management of it, we currently have 100 students who are enrolled for kindergarten next year. We are capped at 92, so we would have to determine which 8 students would be moving to Rivercrest, or to EP Rock, I'm sorry, and the process for determining how we do that.
But certainly those preschool siblings or incoming kindergarten siblings that have siblings in Rivercrest currently would have first priority to those spots.
The primary advantages of this option would be that it does grandfather all the current Rivercrest students and their preschool siblings. It does honor class size guidelines through the capping process, and it does redistribute enrollment in available space at Rock. However, the primary disadvantage is it does, for multiple years, move away from the district practice of keeping neighborhoods together. It does cause transportation concerns for increased cost, possible longer bus rides for students, and of course getting students to school on time. Right away, all primary classes at Rivercrest would be capped and closed, which would present some concerns for us about managing student mobility in and out during the year, applications to move back, whether or not there'd be a waiting list in place. And finally, Rivercrest would be near building capacity in just 1 year.
And the last option, option 3, add classrooms to Rivercrest. There really is construction of 2 classrooms, and then we would make an internal move to make the 3rd classroom, and that would be combining 2 special ed classrooms now, LD and EBD, into an additional classroom. So there would be 3 additional K-5 classrooms that we would be able to use from our current configuration with this option. It talks about building 2 to 3 classrooms. We've determined the building itself, the construction, can really be 2 classrooms. And then as we defined this, we talked about last time at the board table using approximately $500,000 of the money from the general fund balance that was originally set aside for construction at Rivercrest and was not needed. But the amount to build those 2 classrooms really would need to have a budget of $850,000 instead of the $500,000. And this option doesn't change or adjust any boundaries for Rivercrest. It's the same boundaries that it currently has. And again, we wouldn't look at boundary exceptions or open enrollment. And I would have you turn in your materials to the floor plan. I think that's at the end of the section of Rivercrest, just to show you where the most probable place for this addition would be. It's at the end of the kindergarten wing, and we had hoped to place the addition closer to the other classrooms, basically in between those classrooms, adding to give us more flexibility about what grade level we would use assigned to the classroom. But when we talked to our construction managers, what they said was we had a concern about timeline and trying to get that done in as much quickly as possible. And these two, having the two classrooms together helps with the speed, even though we do anticipate that this probably cannot be constructed over the summer months. It would go into the school year, probably into October. So this location helps us with the timeline, and it also helps us with the cost of this addition. If we tried to put it on in different locations, the cost would increase. And Tracy, you're going to
just real
talk
quick,
about
the chart, the pink areas are the classes that would, or the grade levels that would be using those additional classrooms. And then the other piece to note would be the peach section, which is in 2011-12, third grade, would also require additional space at that time. There is no chart for EP Rock because this doesn't impact EP Rock other than leaving that building underutilized.
The primary advantages for this option are that all current Rivercrest students would continue at Rivercrest. Additional space is provided for future Rivercrest growth. It does maintain a neighborhood school concept and does not require boundary changes at the present time. The primary disadvantages are the cost. The cost is prohibitive or higher, considerably higher than first estimated because of the small scale. The cost per foot is higher than building the building. Budget dollars may be needed for other programs and projects, and the space may not be needed once a secondary long-term solution is secured. Additional classrooms are needed beyond the two considered for construction. Rivercrest is already near adjusted building capacity of 654 in just 3 years. And Rock continues with this option to have underutilized space.
now the comparison chart, we're not going to take the time because we know you've had time to look at this on page 6, but we are going to go through the column of budget impact, and that hits a lot of the detail in the chart, the rest of the detail in the chart, and we've covered some of it with the advantages and disadvantages. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim to review the budget impact.
Okay, if you look at your second to the last column on the right-hand side, this is 2009-2010 budget impact. It does not, we're not talking about any of the future years out here. The option 1A, we're assuming that we would be adding anywhere from 1 to 3 teachers. So that's $65,000 to $195,000 in total cost. Staffing would be held off until we know where the numbers, exactly where the numbers are falling, which would be closer to the beginning of the school year. Staff may be transferred from other buildings to accomplish staffing. Transportation, in the first option, 1A, we'd be adding 1 additional bus route. Equipment would vary from $11,000 to $33,000, again, depending on how many sections are added. And then curriculum, $17,000 to $51,000, again, depending on the number of sections that are added. There would be additional costs that are not included here, and that would include additional music, art, and Phi-Ed, again, determined based on the number of sections added. Option 1B, we'd be assuming no additional teacher staffing for 9-10, 1 additional transportation route, and then equipment costs from $4,000 to $8,000. Again, a little bit less there because we're not assuming we would be adding a section, and then curriculum costs $8,000 to $16,000. Again, adding reading, math, gifted, talented, ESL, LD, and EBD, guidance office, possible lunch and custodial staffing that would be determined once we get closer to where the final numbers are falling. Under option 2, teacher staffing would be anywhere from 0 to 1 additional teaching staff. 2 transportation routes would be added in for a total of $80,000, and then equipment running from $4,000 to $11,000, and curriculum costs from $8,000 to $33,000. And then option 3, Construction costs, as Mary had mentioned previous, preliminary estimates there are for those 2 classrooms that she spoke about were $850,000. The teaching staff would be from 2 to 3 teachers, so $130,000 to $195,000. Adding 2 additional routes for transportation at $80,000. Equipment from $22,000 to $33,000, and then curriculum running from $34,000 to $51,000. And then again, you look at additional music, art, VIED, again to be determined a little bit later on, and plus additional reading, math, gifted, talented, etc. So.
I just have a couple of closing comments. You know, our elementary data indicates continued growth throughout the district. Certainly kindergarten registration would speak to that as well. Administrators share board members' concerns about students at Rivercrest, and certainly we would like to, really wanted to be able to grandfather all of those students and their preschool siblings. And as you know, we worked very hard at trying to do that over the last few months. But what we found when we did that was either we did not solve the problem of relieving, providing enough relief for Rivercrest, or we created other problems that we were not comfortable with. So we submit the administrative recommendation to you and the additional options with the corresponding information for your consideration. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. And I guess what I'd like to do at this time is have board members, if they have questions for the presenters, to bring those out now. And then once we're done with that, if anybody from the audience wants to get up and if they have anything to say, and then at the end come back to the board and have a more full discussion, recognizing that we need to reach a decision this evening. We first reviewed this in January and as well as February, and the administration went back, and I feel like they've addressed many of the questions and information that we requested from them. So this evening, I think we need to reach a decision. So, board members, questions?
Question regarding option number 2, enrollment management plan. The assumption that I'm asking about, did you take an assumption that regarding the projections for the class sizes moving forward from one year to the next, was that every family was going to stay in the community throughout those years?
We just, with all of the options, did a 4% growth, and really not having much history to know how many students would be moving out of Rivercrest. That's really what we're limited with, those kinds of numbers. But yes, so 4% growth is applied.
4% growth, even though that we're capping the enrollment and those, and you're so
well at those the way this one's calculated. So at those levels that are capped, that 4% growth would then be moved to Rock, because obviously you can't fit that in at Rivercrest, so it just adds your number higher at Rock.
All right, so I'll go back to my question then. The ones that stayed, the kids that remain, and we're holding to those numbers from this point forward in this plan. We're assuming that all those families will stay in this community. None will move out. None will leave for any reason. I'm just asking that as a clarification. So.
Well, you're going to have, obviously you're going to have students move out, but we're also going to have students move in. So each of those grade levels, especially in those capped areas, need to be continued monitoring to see if there's space available. And then also at the second, or at the intermediary level, we're going to be, some of those are starting to get close also, so that those all have to be watched. Mm-hmm. And if there are students that move out, then that opens up space obviously at Rivercrest. But if they don't, then, and they remain capped, then that additional growth would go to EP Rock.
Tom, just an additional explanation. If you look at first grade in 09-10, and that's our current kindergarten number, so we didn't subtract from that. I think that's your question. Did we subtract? We didn't. We just took the 99 and then divided it. Yep.
So if they did move out, it would then remain, if we went down to 92, then it would stay at 92. And even if we, you know, when I talked about those grade levels that, or those sections that were higher, even if we move, just so that you know, if we move those students to Rock so that they were all at the 22 students, the cap that way, Rock can certainly accommodate those additional kids.
Other board members, questions for any of our presenters? Brian?
Yeah, Tim, just a question about the budget for, I'm assuming 1 to 3 new teachers for option 1A. I mean, is that necessarily a net new hire, or can we reallocate teachers from other, is there things we can do to reallocate teachers from other schools does it look like we have some sections of 5 and EP Rock. Is that necessarily a new hire? Or?
Well, this would be assuming that as we get closer to the start of the year, there could be some reallocations from other buildings here. But this is estimating it would be anywhere from 1 to 3 new teachers.
But to answer your question about, we would be looking district-wide. We plan to hold off on hiring any new elementary teachers.
So before we rehire, we would look at maybe building some efficiencies in other elementary schools.
Right. If we can reassign, we would do that.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Tracy, Peg. Diane, do we have any requests? The request to speak would be on this specific topic as well as the items that we're currently discussing. Okay, the first one is Sheila Engel, and then we'll have Mary Yoakum on deck. Sheila, if you could state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Sheila Engel, and I live at 104 East Canyon Drive. I guess my first question kind of comes to regarding the construction cost. One of my neighbors kind of just said, well, we can build our houses for less than this, and there's a whole house, and we're talking about 2 classrooms and remodeling an area, and I guess it's very hard to swallow that it would cost $800,000 to do that. I mean, I guess I just wanted to say that. It just seems like that's a ridiculous amount of money to build 2 classrooms and remodeling 1. And then my second question, although I realize that this was the very first option you offered, there's many of us who have children who are struggling with the changes and having to move, and unfortunately to me it sounds like you've kind of already, most of you probably have your minds made up, but I'm wondering if it gives any bearing to you to know that the children who have trouble, who have moved, and who are still struggling with that move, I think some of us parents would prefer, even though we fought against it in the beginning, to separate our children to save the one child, because it is traumatic for them, and I realize that you guys understand that to an extent, but it kind of seems like it gets swept under the rug that they can move, it's okay, it'll be okay, but it's not okay. We're the ones dealing with it day in and day out, and we're the ones whose children are still struggling. So I guess I wanted to kind of pose that question again, is just, I realize we said absolutely not, we don't want to separate our kids, but at the cost of one child, it's almost like a better option on some level. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mary, if If you could state your name and address, please.
Mary Yakub, 154 Dunbury Pass, Red Cedar Canyon. I could stand up here and selfishly say that I want my daughter to come to Rivercrest. She doesn't have a sibling in here yet, so I can't do that. The reason why I'm choked up is through this whole process, I've gotten to meet more parents and gotten to meet more of their kids, and I'm willing to say that to grandfather one subdivision and move 3 out, and in the process, move kids that presently attend Rivercrest, to me is just wrong. And if that means that my daughter, who hasn't started yet, has to go to Rock, I'm willing to concede to that. But I can't see you moving kids that are presently attending the school. And I think it's even more unfair that you're willing to grandfather one of the subdivisions and at the same time move kids that have moved once before, which is, I believe, your first option. I just think it's not fair. Please don't consider that option out of all 3. Don't even, it's just not right. And also, I lost my train of thought, but I lost my train of thought. Just please consider keeping the kids that are presently at Rivercrest, staying at Rivercrest. If that causes my daughter to move, I'll accept it, but I can't see these kids move again. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, next is Shanna, followed by Kim. Shanna, if you could state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Shauna Schwartz, and I live at 130 Dunbury Pass. My daughter's currently in kindergarten, has been stressed about this since we brought it up. I just have a few points to make. First of all, I want to thank you for your time. I know this has not been an easy situation for any of us. I think Hudson has a bigger issue than what we're dealing with right today, and probably way past that. But there's some schools that have 14 students per teacher in the 3th through 5th grade. So I don't think that enrollment across the schools, the class sizes are even. And we have overcapacity in the middle and high schools. So to me, this is just a Band-Aid, and there's going to be more changes to come, which is unfortunate. I wish there would be a bigger solution that would be looked at. Again, the $850,000, I really hope that more bids are looked at, because I think that's way astronomical. I also had a question about the budget and why there's $80,000 in additional transportation costs if there's no boundary changes, and that was on option 3. Personally, a change going back to Rock is going to cost me thousands of dollars per year because I have to use before and after school care, and I know this is not about me, but just this is what it's about, getting people's issues. And lastly, Rivercrest in some ways was poorly designed in the way that you have K through 2 having 18 to 22 students rolling into 4 classrooms that allow 22 to 27 students. The math doesn't work. You need more classrooms in the K through 2 than you do in the 3 through 5. So I think keeping it as is just a temporary solution anyway, because the way that the building is structured, it doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility when you have those bubbles coming through. And I know it's not good economic times to be spending this money, but I think that's a good long-term solution anyway. And grandfathering in, I'm hoping that we can consider that, because it's, it would just make the easier transition for all the students that have already had to change once, and you don't have to change them again. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Shauna. Kim?
I'm Kim Scoba, and I live at 68 East Canyon Drive. I have a 2nd grader at Rivercrest. He started at Willow River. We were in EP at Rock attendance boundary and voluntarily moved to ease the congestion. And now he's at Rivercrest, and so he's facing, if you move him to EP Rock, 3 schools in 4 years. And I think 3 schools in 4 years isn't indicative of a quality school system. I think growth is a moving target in Hudson. When my younger kids were at EP Rock, they moved on, but they finished at EP Rock. When they were there, Prairie was full. I mean, I think you're just looking at something that's moving, that's going to be a constant problem, as people have said. My question is, we're really basing all this on data, and I appreciate all the numbers that you've put together, but how can we trust your numbers when you got it so wrong the first time? I mean, how 1 year into this school are we facing this problem? I feel that asking families to split up their kids is wrong. I think asking neighborhoods to, at least in the near term, some people go because they've got preschool kids and some people stay, it's not acceptable to me as a tax-paying citizen. And so I ask that you consider a long-term solution that really takes into account the needs of the families that are already here at Rivercrest, and that you don't have your solution made on the backs of our kids. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Diane, do we have another one? If you want to go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Yeah, Dominic Busta, 24 Bristol Court. I guess option 1A, and maybe I saw it wrong, but I thought basically for EP Rock, it looked like kindergarten, you were already pretty close to capacity for 4. I thought that was shaded in a dark gray. I'm not sure. I thought I remembered that. First grade for the next year, it's the same issue, and then second grade for the next year, it's the same issue. That's the only grade that you've got data on. Why would we not expect the kindergarten the second year and the kindergarten in the first grade the third year to have that same issue? I guess I'm just a little concerned about that. My son, I'm guessing now will be going to EP Rock, but I am very concerned about class size exceeding those limits doing that move. The other thing I just want to bring up, and just to add to a point that one of the other speakers made, I'm not quite sure. There's a design flaw with this school, and it appears with many of the schools in the district. Why you would build 4 classrooms for each grade, it doesn't make sense when you do the numbers. You really need 5 classrooms in the K through 2 to feed the 3 through 5 classrooms to maintain, just looking at an average class size in your range that you have. So I think you're always going to have an issue. You're going to have an issue in this school and in EP Rock that you're under capacity, under your class size on 3 through 5, whereas you're over or on the edge on your K through 2. So I think it's something to look at, medium term, long term, that you got to do something different there, because you're setting up to have this issue every couple of years where your numbers, they don't flow right. So my fear is we'll be back here in 2 years with a similar issue because of that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks for those comments from everyone. Diane, anything else? Okay. At this time, I'd like to bring it back to the board and open it up to a discussion of the different proposals that are before us. So, anybody want to lead off? Tom?
I'm the proponent for option number 2, managing the enrollment. And I stated this in the last board meeting. You know, in this situation when there's such a quick turnaround of change, moving kids from one school to the next and then moving them back within a year, it's difficult for me to accept that. And as I evaluated and I looked at it and thought about it, I don't think it's fair to, with understanding that the pressure that this is, that the pressure, where this pressure is coming from, are from families that are moving into the area. It wasn't created originally by the families that were in the service areas to begin with. We don't want to penalize the special needs kids. We've already determined that. In my mind, we don't want to penalize the families that are already here, that haven't created the pressure, but has been created by families moving in. So, in my way of thinking, option number 2 is the right option because it manages the process. It manages the growth. It keeps the families that are here, including the siblings that aren't in school yet. And as I look at the disadvantages, it talks about moving away from keeping neighborhoods together. I think that's true if as families move into neighborhoods, they're not going to be going to the same school that the kids across the street are, but they're coming in understanding that. They're coming in knowing that. Second disadvantage is related here is the transportation concerns regarding costs for more buses, but every option has more costs. And this cost is not higher than many of the other costs. And the long bus rides, I'm having a hard time understanding how this can be much longer of a bus ride when the proximity between EP Rock and Rivercrest are as close as they are, and therefore also getting kids to school on time. And then the last disadvantage mentioned, that Rivercrest will be capped and closed immediately, and Rivercrest will be near building capacity in a year. But then again is without the assumption that some families will move out, some families will leave, and so that capacity will actually drop. That would be my assumption. So those
Okay.
are my comments.
Thanks, Tom. Question, I don't know if this is for Tim or Nancy. Transportation, do we have any kind of sense what we're looking at in terms of potential costs associated with transportation?
I'll let Nancy answer that.
Should I start? Okay,
Yes.
and then you can add to it if you want. From our contract, each additional bus costs approximately $40,000. The issue of additional buses, and this comes from our experience with a model like this in the past, which was short-term in anticipation of the new building. But our experience had us duplicating bus routes because students were going to more than one school location. Our schools, in order to manage our costs of transportation, to keep those costs efficient, our schools don't all start at the same time either. And so you have to consider that in terms of the number of buses and routes and the timing. Looking at where new students might locate or might live, it's a pretty big area, and it's possible that one new child would locate in the neighborhood in the far southern, corner of the attendance area, and be maybe the only child that the bus has to go get. So it's those sorts of possibilities that cause us to estimate at least 2 buses, maybe not in the first year, but as the attendance area would grow, we of course would need to consider additions for that. And we have to get kids to school on time. We're going to get them to school on time. And sometimes we have to add buses to do that. Do you want to add anything, Tim? Because you know the contract as well.
Yeah, and routes are based on flat fee plus mileage. So, but this is really it would be an average cost of a route. So, I think like Nancy's saying, depending on where the runs are, the cost will vary.
Nancy, could I ask, how is it different from when we had an interim solution before having the new elementary school and busing kids, a variety of kids, and from the EP Rock area up to Holton?
When we, prior to opening the new school, we had multiple additional buses at around this cost, going to multiple schools. So it really isn't all that different. But when we opened the school and children returned to their neighborhood schools, we were able to reduce the number of buses, and we were able to eliminate several of the transfer buses. We had children, being picked up and going to a particular school that they didn't attend, but then transferring to another bus to go to another school. So it really isn't different. The concept is the same.
Comment?
Brian.
So, Tom, one comment I have for that is just, I understand, why you support that. My challenge from the management standpoint has been, who selects the 12 people, day one, given that we have capacity for 88 kindergartners? Who's going to select the 12 that go to, EP Rock, day one, right? Because it's going to be capped. And then my concern is, so now we have people that, some family is going to EP Rock who have already been here, and then 2 years from now, for some reason, there's an opening now in that school. do we have to now, do they get the first right of refusal, come back versus a new family? And I can just see the management challenges extraordinary from that standpoint is one of the concerns I have with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a valid question. The assumption is that all of the families that are currently in the Rivercrest area would stay. So any of the 8 that you're talking about would be new families coming into the area, right? So,
Yep.
right? So, I mean, there are ways to determine, who's first in, who applies first, or whatever it may be. I don't know that there's a perfectly fair solution, but there are ways to make selection processes. And in terms of when a classroom size opens up in a year or 2 years or whatever that is, again, there are methods to make determinations about that. It could be, and I'm not sure that necessarily that each family would necessarily want to come back to Rivercrest. If they establish themselves in that school, that may be their school for that purpose and that time.
I'm just curious, Tom. We have 100 for this fall already. So I think isn't that maybe what Brian's we got?
Right, and it's 100. It's 100 of, but the 100 is made up of families coming into the.
And
right?
maybe a sibling, maybe extra siblings from, I don't know.
Well, it could be
current siblings.
I guess we don't know that then.
Right, but I mean, I think so. So right now, you'd be faced with having to decide with the batch of this year's already registered kindergartners who loses the lottery and goes to Rock.
Well, again, nobody that is currently in the area is moved to EP Rock in this plan.
Okay,
right?
so you'd keep all 100 kindergartners here, Tom?
Yeah, I mean that would be the plan. So,
although I think what the number suggests is the cap would be at 92 in kindergarten, Tom. So still at 100 that are currently registered, and assuming that number will go up, my hunch is it will. That somebody that's registered today would end up being moved to Rock. I'd like to take it in a slightly different direction. So, Tom, when we got the board pack and I looked through this, I had tons of hope that the enrollment management plan would be the right solution. And when I looked at it, initially I thought perhaps, and yet, one of the principles that I believe in strongly is maintaining a class size that will allow the teachers to do exactly what we're asking them to do with these very fragile young children. And the over class size guidelines are just pervasive under that plan. And so I think it so sub-optimizes every single classroom at grades K, 1, and 2 in Rivercrest that I think we do a disservice to the student body at large in this particular building by following the enrollment management plan, as much as I love the concept.
I agree with Barb as well, and as you look at, it underutilizes Rock. It still leaves us with all of that space and ability to provide that level of education and that one-on-one that we're talking about at Rock. So that's my concern, and as well as Rivercrest would be filled up in a year.
And I guess
to me, it's a one-year plan.
And I have to add my voice to that too. I feel so strongly that we have asked our teachers and our students to really change the paradigm, and we have put them into an educational paradigm that really fundamentally works because of the small class sizes, and it doesn't help us support the success of that really major. I mean, we're talking a major initiative that we've committed to there, and I think we really pull the support. It's like pulling the rug out from under the program when we talk about just ignoring the class size issue. But there are a couple of other things too, and one of the community people said that it's hard to trust our decision making when we got it so wrong the first time. And then somebody else said that enrollment is a moving target, and it always will be. And I think that that's really true. Not that we got it so wrong the first time. I have to say I don't think we got it wrong the first time. I think that we did really amazingly well in the redistricting that was done. The fact that it needs some tweaking now is largely because enrollment is a moving target, and it always will be in this district. It's going to be a long time before we have the ability to predict in the way that we always traditionally have. And I think that what that tells us is that our sort of old expectations, the assumptions that we make about what always has been, we really have to stop relying on those kinds of assumptions, you know. So, you know, I guess what I would suggest is that, you know, even if we make this, whatever decision we come to tonight has to be in the context of it being a short-term solution, because for us to think about how we're going to make one decision and make it last for 2, 3, 5 or more years, I think is unrealistic for this community. For us as a board to make a decision tonight and think that 3 years from now that decision isn't going to be revisited, or next year that it's not going to be revisited, I think is a mistake. I don't think we should set our community up for the expectation that, you know, whatever we decide tonight is going to be sort of a permanent solution, because it's not. So I really feel strongly that we need to keep that in mind as we do this. And so that, I guess, because of that, I'm having a hard time with the enrollment management plan. I'm also having a hard time with the concept of building right now. I think that's a bad idea too, and if nobody is supporting that, I think that we ought to go ahead and make the effort to take it off the table.
Okay, Cindy, Tom, did you want to?
Just one last comment about the 100 students. What the 100 students with 4 sections is 25 kids in a class. That's
22 in K through 2.
Right. That's what the it would be 25 kids with 100 students, right, in 4 sections. So that's 3 over the limit, and that's with the assumption that that's with the assumption that, you know, without any further growth, without any further additions of kids in that class, that all those kids would remain in this community. So it can only go down; it can't go up.
What happens if they have 2 siblings at home? The challenge is you don't know, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you mean it could be more than 100
right.
in fall, sure, or it could be less.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And the 1 or 2 or 3 kids over the class size limit, what if those are the ones that are struggling? I mean, all you've done when you go over the class size limit is, I mean, when you look at the limits, what we're saying there is we're saying this is the optimal range. Maybe, you know, 18 is really ideal, and 22 is about the max that we can do. So when you take the 23rd student, 24th, and 25th students, and then you tell me there are 3 kids or 4 kids in that class that are really struggling, I mean, don't tell me that you can say that it has nothing to do with class size, because you can't say that it doesn't.
I'm not saying that.
So I guess if we're talking about struggling kids and how we provide the best education for struggling kids, I think that we have to really get behind our class size guidelines and realize that the 22 is not I mean, that's not like 22 is great. It's like 22 is really the max we feel is acceptable for the criteria that we've put in place.
I think the comments that were made earlier by Sandy and Peg and Tracy and Mary and Nancy regarding the class sizes was fairly compelling to me. I look at Dick out in the crowd. Dick, you know, as a former board member, you know how long we've had the policy about maintaining our class sizes, and because we have viewed that as optimal for learning within this district. Now we as a board have approved HSD 2025. We're initiating SMART goals throughout the district, and we're putting these demands on our district to reach these various goals that we as a board have set. And a lot of that is in addition to our value of small class sizes. So I'd just like to remind the board members what we have set in place and, you know, what we need to maintain in order for us to achieve these goals. So this is not an easy decision for us as a board. As you can tell, it's the 3rd meeting on this topic. So, but I think if we truly value the small class sizes, I really think that has to stand out in our decision making. Mark?
Thank you, Dan. Well, with having Mr. Holland here on the defensive for what was kind of his plan, I think I'll take a shot at my own. As you may recall, last month I had a very strong interest in keeping the kids here and grandfathering siblings, and I just didn't think that would be nice. I wanted to make that work. It's my idea, so I tried every which way but loose to see if that would be a go. It isn't. Looking at my plan, I'll call it my plan, we could have class sizes as big as 27. And while I am willing to acknowledge there should be some flexibility with regard to class size, I share the concern that Dan raised, and what this board has always endorsed is that it is a factor in student learning. And quite frankly, 27 just pushes the envelope too far. And of course, it could be bigger. So as much as I would have liked my idea to fly, I don't think it can. We have a duty, I think, to consider, of course, the learning for all the students, and that was, I guess, one of the things that kind of had to bring me back, looking at how the numbers would have been fairly, imbalanced with much smaller class sizes at Rock. For example, just looking at one second grade section in the year 2010, we could have had 27 kids here and 17 and 18 over there at Rock, and there's not a chance that the quality of learning can be the same when you're dealing with those kind of disparate numbers. And I guess further, Cindy had mentioned about what we're asking our teachers to do, raising the bar, challenging our students. It just doesn't seem right to be putting those challenges to the teachers and the students, and then setting up a system that is a roadblock to reaching those goals. And I think, quite frankly, that the plan that I had espoused would do just that. So
I guess.
Thank you, Mark.
I guess having heard Mark say that, I feel like, and I do this with really a heavy heart, because if I didn't have to make a decision about this, I would definitely not make a decision about this. But I guess I'd like to move that we approve option 1A.
Option 1A, adjust the RC boundaries, which is the administration's recommendation. Okay, we have a motion, second by Lynn. Discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
The motion's approved. Thank you. And we'll move on to the 7B, 2009-2010 staffing. Nancy?
I'm looking for it. It's green. Okay. It's green. I got it. These are the teacher staffing additions and reallocations, several of which you have already approved, but we're informing you through this agenda item of the reallocations of staffing resources, and at this point in time, the actual salary cost added for those that you've already approved. There are several staff positions that you have not yet approved, and so we're asking for your approval tonight for up to 3 FTE elementary classroom teachers, and that would be a salary added cost of up to $105,000. At the middle level, although it was part of a plan, a report that Principal Koch gave some time ago, the board was not asked and did not take action on approving the 1.0 language arts teacher and the 1.0 math teacher. Language arts teacher would be provided through a transfer of a 1.0 FTE high school position to the middle school. And the math teacher would be a salary cost added of $40,000. and I think we're all aware, and you are too, of the significant increase in student enrollment at the middle level that would justify these additional positions. Otherwise, the already approved orchestra, Mandarin Chinese, 0.5 at middle, 0.5 at the high school, the Project Lead the Way, AP Government, and you already approved the special education teacher on special assignment. That's in student services at the district level. That's continuing and already budgeted, so there's no additional cost added to that.
If I could, Dan, just to chime in that the Personnel Committee met several weeks back and discussed these new positions and reallocations and did approve them.
Okay. Thank you. Any
comment?
Questions, Brian?
Just to go back to my previous point, I just want to stress that as much as possible, we don't hire 3 teachers. We try to find a way to drive as much efficiency as possible with our current staffing, given our state funding and the uncertainty right now of the budget we're getting from or the revenues we're getting from the state right now.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Actually, we talked about that specifically today. We talked about it yesterday, and we're delaying hiring elementary staff just to make sure that we can look at that for a longer period of time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'd move the approval of the additional teachers as laid out in this document in item 7B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom, a second by Barb. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. We'll move on to open enrollment applications. Nancy?
Yes, this material is in your board book. It's pages 12 through 15. And just to remind you, open enrollment is a Wisconsin statute. It's a law that makes available to non-residents enrollment in another school district. And we're compelled to participate. And there are very prescribed reasons for approval in and approval out. Very prescribed. There's not much discretion associated with those decisions. And parents denied their children's either out or in have appeal rights. They can appeal to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. So just to summarize first, and let me also say it's money in and money out. Dollars follow kids out and dollars follow kids in. So there's a financial impact as well. The open enrollment into Hudson, we had 22 requests. And no, actually, if you look at page 12, we had 36 requests, and we did honor 22. We we're recommending to you not to approve any middle school requests because of the enrollment, current enrollment at the middle school, current over-enrollment, and we did recommend approval of 20 of the elementary requests, and at this point in time, we do not need to communicate to the families the actual school where space is available, but I will tell you, not at Rivercrest and not at Rock. And then we look at it grade level by grade level, and then I think it's April 16 is the statutory deadline that we must tell them where. We are recommending approval of 2 high school applicants. They are upperclassmen. It's a 2-year in and out for those students. And our high school enrollment has been somewhat stable, if not down. So that's the in. So a total of 22 in. We did have 56 applications out. And we're recommending the approval of 49. Again, you have not a lot of discretion relative to denial. It is interesting, though, and I know Mary has done some analysis of this, further analysis, but the majority of the requests for out are out into virtual school settings. And in fact, approximately a third of those requesting out have never been in. So they've never actually been registered as students. They live here, but they've never registered with us. They're requesting virtual schools. There's a few that we are recommending denial, and in several cases, if not all of them, they are special education students for whom the parent identified a disability, but there's no evaluation available to us, no IEP. That's a reason we can deny. We can also deny requests associated with expulsion from another school district. We can also deny requests that we consider to be undue financial burdens. We've not particularly done that in the past, but with the concerns that we have about our budget, we're doing that with a couple, several here. So 49 out, 22 in.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
I just would like to add, since this is the first time we've seen this level of interest in virtual schools, it behooves us to investigate that as well. Certainly we, as Nancy pointed out, many of those students have not attended Hudson School, but we do have students as well who have attended our schools who are interested in virtual schools. So I've asked Sandy Kovac to lead an effort to investigate virtual schools and the potential of starting something along those lines in our district, and we'll be bringing that information to Learning and Program Development in the fall.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any questions for Nancy regarding open enrollment?
Yeah,
Brian?
Nancy, comment on number 27. Can you just 27?
7 in?
Yeah. Just the question is that student going to Rivercrest?
No. We put in our comments there, it would be North Hudson or Willow River under comments. So we would admit, now you have to, if you have space anywhere, enrollment space anywhere, you're compelled by this law to grant the request, but we can place the child in any setting. And no, there were several requests specifically for Rivercrest, and although we're saying yes, we're not saying yes to Rivercrest.
Okay.
Those are students that live in the Rivercrest area, though?
No, they live outside the district.
Okay.
They don't live in Hudson.
Mr. President, I have a question for Nancy.
Lynn?
Are we able to try to place the students that are, whether it's in a school requested, but where our comments are Holton or North Hudson, is there an advantage to placing them in one of the schools that might be under-enrolled?
Yes.
And are we looking at doing that?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And we have a history of doing that. We have not placed any open enrolled students at Rivercrest yet. We didn't do it this year. We won't do it next year or in the foreseeable future. And we have placed quite a number of students at Holton.
So we should encourage that, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
good financially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Helps balance enrollment.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of
Mr. President, move to improve the open enrollment.
A motion by Brian.
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is approved. Move on to consent items, and along with the expenditures amount.
I don't know.
Mr. President,
Yes, Brian.
move that we approve the consent items, including that we move to allow the Director of Financial Services to be authorized to pay bills in an amount of $2,055,001.64.
We have a motion by Brian.
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is approved.
Mr. President, may I recuse myself at this time for conflict of
Okay.
interest?
Cindy
And-
Crimmins is recusing herself as we have a discussion on the police school liaison office.
And all I would like to do at this time is just to recognize the two retirees that you just approved, Virginia Schneider, teacher health Fayette at the middle level, and Pat Stevens, social studies teacher at the middle level. They have both worked for the district for a long time, and so I just wanted to recognize them.
Okay. Thanks, Nancy. We have a couple individuals that like to speak on this topic. We have the mayor, Dean Knutson, and Kim Bruner. So, Dean, if you want to. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Good to see you all here. I haven't been here for so long that I think there's maybe only two of you that are the same faces. And after tonight, there'll probably be more turnover, right? You're going to feel like I've had enough of this.
Mr. Mayor, you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. My comments will be brief.
Go
The
ahead.
City Council and the City of Hudson supports the idea of the police school liaison officer. You know, we hope that we can work together in a partnership in a number of ways, not just in regard to this. And this is one where, as we started looking at this last year, the opinion of the City Council is just simply that it's a matter of the finances involved with it. And so what we're asking for is that it be 75-25 split going into the future. Essentially, for the school year, the school's paying for the officer. For the non-school months, the city's paying for the officer. And it seems like a matter of equity and fairness more than anything else. Now, I know it's a change from past practice, and if you look at what it's been paid, it looks like a huge jump, and I know your budget constraints, and we have the same. So I'm sensitive to that. And if you need to do something different, you know, we can adjust to that too, and we will. But I think you'll lose something. There's an important part of this relationship that'll be lost if you do something different than this. And so that's my message to you, is that I hope we can continue to have a partnership. You know, it wasn't too long ago you were approaching the city asking to annex this property, which was in the town of Troy, because it was going to save you a few $100,000 up front and some ongoing maintenance over the years for not having to install a sewer system. And some of the complaints at that time were, hey, we're not sure any students from the city of Hudson are even going to go to this school. And why is that in our interest? There won't be any tax benefits. In fact, it'll be tax-exempt property forever that we'll need to provide services to, including police services. And now I think, I'm not certain what option one was tonight. I haven't followed it, but if I'm not mistaken, probably no more city students will go. Here are very few, because most of the people that stormed out of here are my constituents, and I've been hearing from them. But that's a side issue. I think, you know, if you can live with 60-40 for a year, because that's what we offered, is give you a transition year of 60-40. Then make it 75-25, because that gives you a little more time to adjust in your budgeting. The difference between 60-40 and 75-25 is about $15,000 a year. And, you know, our budget is a lot smaller than yours, but it's a $10 million budget. Yours is maybe $50 million. $15,000 isn't something that I hope we harm our relationship over. So I guess I'd encourage you to say, let's continue with the police school liaison officer as a sworn officer from the Hudson Police Department. I think that's what's best for your students. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean, for coming tonight. Jill Loomis, if you could state your name and address, please.
My name's Jill Loomis, and I live at 422 South Fork Drive. And I didn't even know I was going to talk on this one, but I was like, oh, it's on the agenda tonight. So I just want to let you know I do have background at the UW-Madison. I have a degree in behavioral science and law and criminal justice, so I don't know if that makes me more credible or not, but I think it's very important to keep a police officer from a citizen standpoint. And I have a stepson who's a different school district, who's a high school student, and if I knew a police officer was not on hand, I'd be a nervous wreck. I lived in Denver during the Columbine incident, and your whole life and perspective on school changes after that. So I know it's more money, but I mean, Hudson is growing, and I just think the amount of money you're going to cut, or it's still going to be a real cost if you end up having the police officers come from, have to keep responding. I mean, that's going to, instead of having somebody there, I saw in the paper that was an option. So just wanted to say I really support the idea of having a police officer stay at the high school. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jill. Mr. Crimmins, Mark. Name and address, sir.
All right, well, Mark Crimmins, I'm at 448 Red Brick Road, and of course, I'm currently the school liaison officer. So I thought I'd better at least get a brief statement in here. I know there's a lot of different things going on between the city and the school district. Both have budgets, but this position goes so far beyond budgets to get it locked up over who's going to pay 40, who's going to pay 60, who's going to pay 25, who's going to pay 75. This position is so much more than money to students. It's a position I've held for 8 years. It's a position I feel strongly passionate about. I like working with children. I don't get to work with the valedictorians of your class, and I have great success with these kids. They make a huge difference, not only in the school, but in your communities, whether it's in the city, your townships. They make a difference, and they change things. Not everyone, but I see a lot of change in kids that are troubled, that I get to be a part of. I'm not saying I'm the total solution by any means, but I am a part of it. And I've seen it, and I've seen the benefits of it personally for 8 years. We've had this position coming up on 13 years, and I'm just asking not only to the board but for the city to make sure that you do not lose this position, because it is a valuable position and it has a lot of importance not only to the school but to the city. I just want to read a little bit of, I think we've kind of covered this, but this is a little brief statement, just a little bit more about police school liaison officers, sometimes for school referred to as SROs, or school resource officers. They're one and the same, it's just an interchangeable term. But SROs serve as instructors, law enforcement advisors, and role models. SROs serve as a liaison between the police department and school departments themselves, providing law enforcement services as well as instructions for a safe school atmosphere by assisting in the administration of school rules and policies. Winston Churchill once said, "If we are together, nothing is impossible. If we are divided, all will fail." And I feel this is the future between education and law enforcement for the future across the United States. This is something we need to consider seriously. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark, and we do appreciate your service for the district, so thank you. At this time, we'll move on with our side of the presentations. Nancy, are you?
What difficult decisions we have this evening. As you know, we've been working for months with representatives of the city to come to agreement on the continuation of a contract for the police school liaison officer services. And from the beginning, over a dozen years ago, with a Startup Cops grant, the district has shared the cost of the position, salary, benefits, equipment, training, etc., at a 50% 9 months, and then shortly thereafter to accommodate summer school for 10 months, with the city paying 100% of the 2 months outside of the school calendar. That's been the relationship over that period of time. Our research in preparation for renewal of the contract revealed that most districts were now paying 50% for 12 months, receiving 9 months of service. So we were really out of sync at this time, and that data is shown to you on page 19 of the board book. The board's finance committee authorized the administration to offer this increased percentage, and later again authorized an even higher percentage, 60% of all costs for 12 months, with services for 1 month less than the current 10 months at 9 months. The City Council, however, recently voted to submit to the district a 2-year contract for 60-40 the first year and 75-25 the second year on a 12-month basis for 9 months of service. Our understanding is that the contract offer is binding for 2 years and not a year at a time. The city's proposal would raise the district's cost by 48%, or over $18,000 in the first year, and by 91%, or over $34,000 the second year. Because of the district's budget concerns, the administration cannot recommend the board's approval of the council's 2-year 60-40, 75-25 proposal. The administration would have supported, however, either a 1-year or a 2-year 60-40 proposal. In anticipation that you might also not be agreeable to the council's proposal, the administration has conducted some preliminary research into an alternative plan of service. And should you not approve the council's proposal, we are asking you to approve that the administration move forward to identify an individual with law enforcement credentials and experience, retired or otherwise appropriately available, to serve as a security officer or a school resource officer or something of that title at our high school. The position would provide many, not all, but many of the same services as our PSLO, and would be armed but would not have the authority to arrest or give citations. The new position would be well prepared, however, with the law enforcement background to assist local law enforcement when called to the school. Part of our research within the last few days involved telephone contact with potential candidates. And because of this, we have reason to believe there are a number of qualified and interested candidates. Should you authorize tonight a formal recruitment, interview, and selection process. We also have reason to believe that the district could afford the minimum 178 days, 7.5 hours a day minimum, alternative within the already budgeted equivalent of the earlier 50-50 you previously authorized for the administration. So that's the recommendation and the further, I guess, input of the administration. It's terribly ironic, though, and very difficult for me in particular, because I was the school administrator over a dozen years ago that recommended to the board that we establish this position. And it is incredibly valued. There's just no doubt about it. So it is kind of ironic. But we want to present to you all sides of the picture and let you have a discussion about it.
Okay. Mary?
Certainly we would like to recognize Mark Crimmins' contribution to our high school and to the rest of the district as our police school liaison officer, and for numerous years and so many students and lives that he's touched and helped. The recommendation of the administration in no way is a statement about our lack of value of that position. We certainly do value the position, and our recommendation is based on the budget figures that we're talking about and have allocated in the budget. We also appreciate Mayor Knutsen's comments this evening, and I've appreciated working with him through this process, even though in the final hours we may not agree on the approach and where we are. I really do appreciate his working with us throughout this process of decision making.
And if I could add too that Marty Jensen, the chief, is in the audience. He has put forth great effort toward, in the hopes that the position would be continued. And just so everyone knows, we've had an incredibly good relationship with the Hudson Police Department over all of the time, considerable time that I've been here, and with all the officers. And of course, Mark Crimmins himself. Prior to that, Ed Rankin, and prior to that, Dick Trendy. So it has been a long and positive partnership. It's really about the money.
Okay. Thanks, Nancy. We'll open it up for board comments. Mark?
Thanks, Dan. I'll start. I don't think anybody here questions the value of our police school liaison officer. And Officer Crimmins is outstanding in that role. Absolutely. I think the discussion here is the cost. There is only one school in our conference that pays more than 50%. And I think the reason is that, to me, a collaboration and a partnership is a 50-50 arrangement, whether it be proprietors in business or even a marriage. The city is apparently trying to parse who gets more benefit, and I think that's probably the crux of the matter. This is a valuable relationship. I myself, and I know the board, values our collaboration with the city of Hudson, and in this case, the police department in particular. But we're looking at here at the city asking us to, I think, something close to a 50% increase over what we've been paying. We already offered a substantial increase, and then I guess countered our own offer with another increase to 60-40, and now it has gone to 75-25, and that, to me, that is just that is a deal breaker. This is a valuable position. I hope the city will perhaps reconsider, as we are considering other options as well, and I think we need to pursue those, just so we know what all the options are. But I guess I would encourage the city of Hudson to perhaps take a look at this again and have some more discussions about this. It simply is too big of an increase. And again, further, I really think that we both benefit equally, quite frankly. Law enforcement is the city's business, and education is ours. And where they overlap, and they certainly do, we both benefit. But I, quite frankly, view it as an equal partnership and equal benefit to both organizations.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Brian?
I have a point of order, just comment. I think this is kind of a multidimensional conversation. I would like to see this in a committee. Looks like there's multiple different things to still consider. I think this is a good opportunity to have a committee work and come to the board with a recommendation than to spend the board time going through this right now.
I would support that as well.
Okay.
Nancy, just a question regarding the function of a retired police officer serving in this role. Does it create additional need? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to ask is that as an incident occurs at the school, is there going to be a need for a police officer to come and respond because they're not an official officer of the city?
It's possible if there's an arrest anticipation or considerable disruption that needs law enforcement. Yeah, that's possible, certainly.
So then let me ask the question, how many arrests do we have during a school year then?
Yeah, we probably could ask Mark that. He keeps really, really great data We did collectively go over that data, didn't bring it forth tonight for you. I'd be speaking
understand.
like, I'm not sure. But there are some, yes.
There's some.
Yeah.
Not an overwhelming number, just
And there are
some.
citations given.
Okay.
Certainly.
How would the cost be borne in those situations where we didn't have a PSLO?
For arrests and citations, it would be the responsibility of the city. We wouldn't pay any additional cost.
Okay, any other questions for Nancy? Otherwise, I'd like to go back to...
I have one more. Do we have
Okay.
a current contract in place, and when does it expire?
It expired in December, and through just mutual agreement with the city, they agreed to maintain the position until we could come to an agreement or fail to. And so Mark Crimmins is still in place at this time.
Thank you.
Nancy, is there the decision on the part of the council, is that final? I sense from some of the comments made that there may be an opportunity to review it, or is that, do we have...
To respond to that, Mary, I don't know.
As far as we know, yes,
Yeah.
it is final.
Okay.
Certainly, the board could send some kind of communication back to the council if they choose to do that.
Okay.
As we've talked about, going back to the committee. We would hope that the city would continue to maintain the position until the board could take action, and that would be at our next meeting in April, I would assume, if it goes back to committee for review.
We have a couple more. Mark,
okay. I was just going to say, I mean, what we're looking at taking action on here is the city's offer of the 60, 40, 75, 25 split. And I guess, having considered that, I would move that we do not accept the city's proposal for a 60, 40, 75, 25 split for the 2-year contract for the PSLO.
Is that in the form of a motion?
That is a motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mark. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Tom. Any discussion?
I have a question. We can't just act on the first year, correct?
It's a 2-year contract.
That's what I'm trying to make sure I
Yeah,
understand.
I think it's a 2-year contract.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion's approved. Okay. We'll move on to the committee.
Just clarification. Well, additional information. The city may choose to pull the police school liaison officer, and we may be without until we come back next month with another recommendation.
Understood.
Okay, committee reports. Finance Committee, Brian.
Finance Committee met on 23 Feb. Had 4 items we covered. First was we were talking about the OPEB contribution, the fact that we have a retirement trust, and we're looking at, as we do the actuarial analysis, how much to increase the trust on a yearly basis. We're still waiting for final analysis of that, and we're also waiting for final analysis should we even fund this every year, and what's the benefits of doing that versus the impact on state aid. So there's still work to be done, and we should begin that analysis next board meeting.
Right, we'll bring the study to the next board meeting, April board meeting.
Okay. Any questions on that? Should I continue? Okay. Second item was the budget update. As I mentioned last time, there's some uncertainty right now with the funds we should expect from the state. Given one, the fact that our valuation per member went up based off of the TIF district being absorbed into our valuation. So of course, your revenue per member negatively impacts our state aid. So anytime our valuation goes up per member, we get less state aid. The other thing is with the stimulus package is what can we expect to roll down to Hudson from the stimulus package, and it's not completely clear. We do think there's a $950,000 for special ed funding, but we're still again, that's still fairly speculative at this point. So there's still a lot of moving targets to figure out exactly how much revenues we can expect from the state. But that being said, I think we as a board need to be very diligent on the fact that we should expect some challenges with state aid next year, and put that into our decision making as we're making decisions in the future. Okay. So that was item number 2. We reviewed our quarterly financials. That looked good. We were kind of on track with our budget, and then we had a police school liaison update. Any questions?
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian? No, sir. Good report. Mark? Personnel?
Thank you, Dan. Personnel Committee met 2 weeks ago. We had an update from Nancy Sweet on the ASOP substitute calling system, which is, I didn't make many notes here, but it's an automated system for contacting substitutes. And it's new this year, and in general, the feedback has been very positive. It's always been somewhat of a challenge to getting substitutes in a timely manner, and this seems to have addressed most of the concerns. We had a report from Peg Schumacher regarding implementation of an elementary common planning time. This would be accomplished without any additional staffing, and for the purposes of collaboration and sharing best practices amongst our elementary staff. We had the staffing update also from Nancy Sweet. And, I don't think we really need to go over that. That's what we approved earlier. Just wanting to emphasize perhaps the great degree that the administration has gone to allocate our resources. I know Brian mentioned that earlier, and I think the administration is really doing their part to make sure we've got our personnel resources where we need them. So there was quite a bit of shifting around, and to accomplish that with a minimum of adding additional staff. And lastly, we had a closed session for the purposes of preliminary notice of non-renewal, rather, and deliberating for negotiations with our various employee groups.
Any questions for Mark? Good, thanks, Mark. Facilities and Grounds, Tom.
Facilities and Grounds Committee met on February 25th, and the first item that we discussed was hearing a report from Jim Stayskull on some things that were done in the high school to improve the air quality and airflow, as well as more efficiency and cooling in the summertime. So there were some improvements and updates there. Second item was, again, from Jim Stayskull, reviewing the capital improvement list. We've intentionally made a decision to keep a fairly conservative approach to the list because of some uncertainty in our economy, of course. However, EP Rock security will be completed. We'll likely do the family consumer science room to update this area, including upgrading the ceiling tile and floor. And then also we'll do some additional things in terms of needing roofs for the middle school. We'll need replacing, and both the family consumer science room and the roofs are $100,000 items each. We talked a little bit about the criteria that we use in making decisions. These aren't in priority order, but they do include safety, basic mechanical issues, preventative maintenance, anything that prevents learning, to accommodate growth and security. And finally, we talked in this agenda item about the orchestra program moving to the high school for the first time and installing a wall that will be added for soundproofing, and this will be done over spring break. So, and the final agenda item was something that's already been discussed regarding the Rivercrest enrollment relief option, and that's been covered, and the committee asked that the administration not go any further with studying this regarding the cost and feasibility.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Tom?
Yeah, just a question. The family consumer ed construction or remodel, or Can you explain that?
Ceiling tile and floor replacements.
And that's 100,000?
Well, it's one of the last areas of the high school to be updated. And what it involves is there's equipment costs in that, but this would be equipment costs that would be movable. So depending on what happens at the high school, we can take the majority of these costs and move the equipment to other areas. The costs that are going to be in place are flooring and tile, ceiling tile. But we're looking at cabinetry that's in very poor shape. I mean, it needs to be updated. We just have a lot of very old equipment, and the delivery of the curriculum is affected by that.
Are we doing like new appliances in there and everything else?
Would include new appliances, right? Commercial grade dishwasher, those types of things. But again, those are things. That's equipment that could be moved to other areas of the school if we need to.
And some of the millwork and countertops and things like that. That's where we prepare food. Correct?
Actually, the countertops, those are going to be removed, and then they'll be replaced with mobile storage units. So again, those items will also be able to be moved to other areas if needed.
And how much is that going to cost, that whole project?
Very well. This would be very preliminary right now, somewhere around 100,000.
100,000?
Yeah, that's very preliminary, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Tom, for that report. We do have a citizen's request to speak, and it's Kim Bruner. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's on the topic of capacity and class sizes at the middle school and high school.
Hi, I'm Kim Bruner. I'm at 494 Carriage Lane. I've spoken to you in the past on this, so I want to start with I have a freshman in high school, and I have 2 children here at Rivercrest Elementary School. And I know the decision that you just made was very difficult, and there was a lot of discussion that I'd like to hear about the quality of learning, the class sizes, how important that was, what we're asking our teachers to do, and the commitment to the HSD 2025. What I would like to point out is currently the middle school is over capacity. So we're very concerned about class sizes at the elementary school, but we seem to say, once they get to 6th grade, you're on your own. It's over capacity now with no growth. The high school's close. As we look at continuing to grow, we have to have mobile classrooms in that because we are over capacity. So what I'm asking is, I want the board to have the same commitment to our secondary students as we do to our elementary school students, because all those elementary school students, they're going to the middle school. The teachers there, I wouldn't even want to think about how they have to teach the mobile classrooms, how they have to move classrooms, if it's the arts or whatever else. This is an important issue. And I know these are challenging times. I do. And I recognize that. But you made a difficult decision already tonight based on your beliefs. I ask you to give the middle school and the high school students that same commitment. And I have to be honest, I wasn't aware of this whole police, security liaison issue. But now we're even taking away a security officer from our secondary students. We're willing to pay $40,000 for busing for elementary, but we're not willing to pay $15,000 or $18,000 for a security officer? That just seems, I'm just a parent. I don't know the background. I don't know what other schools pay. I'm just telling you as an outsider, I'm questioning the commitment we have to our secondary schools, and they're at the highest risk people. They don't have the after-school programs. They don't have the places to go. We've got to commit to these students. They're the ones who are our future when you talk about the HSD 2025. So I agree with everything you said tonight. I know not everyone's going to like, what happened. No one likes change. No one likes to have students have to move after 1 year. I'm the same way, and I am in one of the neighborhoods that's impacted. Tough decisions have to be made. I would like to see the board pay the same amount of attention to our secondary students as they do the elementary school. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other board administrator comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I would like to comment on a couple things. First, a clarification, and then I'll talk about secondary space. Because I know the administration also shares Kim's passion for wanting to support or supporting our middle school and our high school students and their learning. And you heard tonight about the Family and Consumer Science upgrade that we have. Just a clarification, we aren't making that because of class sizes. We're making it because it needs to be upgraded, and how long ago that was done. And as a result, we're just thinking ahead. Is that lab going to stay there? Is it going to change with a secondary solution or not? So as we invest our community's dollars, we want to make sure that we're thinking ahead and being able to move those things that are of the highest cost. And so that's what we're doing in that regard. Middle school class sizes, although the middle school is over capacity, and Kim's right about that. And as the students move through the middle school and into the high school this wave, the high school will be over capacity as well, and we do need to address that in the future. But we are addressing middle school class sizes, and we're doing that by additional staff that we added tonight, and we're going to look at potential additions next month once Dan's back at the building. And it's difficult for us with the economic times and our taxpayers and considering them as well as our students. So right now we're trying to balance both. How do we help support the situation that our taxpayers are experiencing, and also continuing to support the improvement of our students, and while raising expectations, as you've seen progress to that in the biology report that you saw, I think last month, and in our AP registration. So we're making as good use as we can of those facilities, knowing that we do need to address these problems as soon as we believe we can.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Dan, just another clarification. The comment was made that it almost seemed to be implying that we're not going to have a police liaison in the school, but that's, just to be clear, that's not the case. We're talking about how we fund that position, and so I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, yes, Tom, that's correct. I think our commitment is there to make sure that our students are safe, and that we have some type of an officer there. We're just faced with these budget issues as any public entity is dealing with right now. So I think it's incumbent upon us as a board to look at explore all the options, whether it be, the boundary issue, the school liaison officer, a lot of these different issues that are before us today. I think, that's our duty. That said, any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. We have a motion by Lynn.
Second.
We have a second by Mark. Any discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Robson, aye.
Bell, aye.
Chernahoy, aye.
Kaisershot, aye.
Holland, aye.
Crimmins, aye.
Van Luden, aye.
Thanks, everyone. Motion's approved.